When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
Blog Talk Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Brawl For All. I am Lance Jenkins, host of the show, and I am accompanied by lead expert analyst Stevie Fly. Stevie, thanks for joining us tonight.
What's going on tonight, Lance?
What's happening? Look, my friend, what's up with the Steelers?
They just looked like they were really unprepared. Coming off a bye week, you figured they'd look a little bit better, but as bad as you want to bash them all, you got to think about this. And I was watching some with some Steeler fans of mine, and Roethlisberger just 2 weeks ago had surgery for a torn meniscus. So him being out there, maybe he should have been out there, but him just being out there is, not many people would have done that.
Yeah. Well,
and
I
you
agree.
You could tell his accuracy was a little off today. But, he kind of caught fire in the fourth quarter, but it was just too little, too late.
Yeah. Well, talking about sports on another level, let's talk about a team that actually received their WWE World Heavyweight titles this week, and that is the Chicago Cubs. First time in 108 years, and they get the WWE titles around their waist for being the World Series champions of Major League Baseball. Congratulations to the Chicago Cubs, folks. Got a lot to talk about tonight, so we're going to get right to it. First and foremost, last week, Stevie, I said on Monday Night Raw, we did kind of a live play-by-play. I called it before the show began. I said Goldberg is going to spear Paul Heyman, and he did. And so my question to you is, do we have any other surprises left in this feud? Do we see – we're getting closer now. We're just weeks away, if I'm not mistaken, just a couple weeks away from Survivor Series emanating live actually from this very night. And so I ask you, we've seen some surprises. Are we going to see some bigger surprises? Rumors are floating around that Goldberg may actually prevail in this match. Are you buying that?
Still, like I said, and I'm stick to my guns on this one. If Goldberg has worked something out with WWE, and there's rumors going around that he has, that he's going to make, won't be a one-stop deal where he does the match at Survivor Series and goes, then yeah, I can see him winning. If he'll set up something for maybe, another match at the Royal Rumble or maybe possibly WrestleMania. I know you have your thoughts on who Goldberg will face at WrestleMania, and I have my thoughts on who that person will face at WrestleMania now. So, I can see him winning if it's going to be more than just a one appearance.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you, and I think it will be more than one appearance. Now, there's also some speculation surrounding a return of another big name, perhaps one of the biggest, if not the biggest name in history of the world of WWE, and that is on the 900th episode of SmackDown coming up next Tuesday night. We're going to see The Undertaker, my favorite of all time. So I ask you, is that a one-shot deal, or do we and we don't see him again until WrestleMania season, or are we going to see something start to build next Tuesday night?
I think you're going to slowly see something start to build on when he comes back. But I'm not going with the whole Goldberg thing like you are. I've got another person that I think there's a lot of talk about and building this up to WrestleMania. So, and I think that's going to be John Cena. I think as few appearances as Cena is making these days, and I know he's taking some time off, but him and Undertaker are about on the same schedule, so I think this will slowly build into something for WrestleMania next year. And like you said Undertaker Goldberg. I'm going Undertaker Cena at WrestleMania now, from what I'm hearing.
Well, that's the more logical choice. I mean, if you take, there's a reason Undertaker's coming back to SmackDown. I mean,
right.
there's certainly a reason there. And I think you probably thought this before that, but with that news, that kind of validates your theory that, there's probably somebody on that roster that will be involved. I can't see them implementing anyone else on the SmackDown roster just to have an Undertaker match. If that was the case, they'd probably put him on Monday Night Raw.
You just don't see anybody on that roster except for Cena matching up with Undertaker right now.
Yeah, well, and it will certainly be a big match. I mean, do you think The Undertaker and John Cena is a heavy draw?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think if you put Cena with anybody on a WrestleMania, and people say what they want to about Cena, but Cena draws. Cena makes ratings. Like Preston Quinn said, Train Trey makes ratings, but Cena gets ratings. And there's a lot of talk here in the last couple of weeks, especially, and it's been talked about in the past, whether or not they would do it or not. And this could be what leads up to the WrestleMania match. Is Cena going heel? Well, would that not bring ratings? There's a lot of talk about it. It's been asked of him, and most of the time when they asked him about it in the past, he was kind of like very, very quick to say, no, I'm not going heel. That's not what I'm doing. But a couple of times here lately, he's been asking. He just kind of played it off and didn't want to say anything about it. So is that a sign? And, there's just a lot of rumors going around, and this would be just as big, if not bigger, than Hulk Hogan's heel turn in the formation of the NWO. So, WWE may be looking to do something just to get ratings and to shock folks, for the shock value right there. And that would be a shock.
Well, and I agree. I would love to see John Cena go heel. It would make me actually like the guy again because, quite frankly, I feel like the whole thing has become very stagnant, very stale. And that's probably the feeling that a lot of people had about Hulk Hogan in the early to mid '90s when it had started to kind of, wear out his welcome at that point. Of course, Eric Bischoff capitalized into something real big. And while it probably would be just as big, do you think it would have the same effect that Hulk Hogan and the NWO had, particularly at the time?
Well, the whole, if you just put the Hogan heel turn, just a Hogan heel turn, and not the formation of the NWO, and against the Cena heel turn, I think that would be about equal. But
right.
When Hogan did it, you already had this NWO invasion angle going with Hall and Nash, and you got three big names right there. I think that's what made the whole NWO thing even bigger. And people, people still bought, and there still are people to this day, no offense, to buy that some of this stuff is real. Back then, it was more people. Kayfabe hadn't been broken. People still thought it was kind of real storylines, and today, you really don't know. You don't know. I mean, I'm sure the the younger generation, it would really have an effect on them because most of Cena's fans are the younger generation. But I don't think it would rate on par as an with the Hogan heel turn just because of the NWO.
Yeah. Well, you're right because, I mean, how many times has the NWO effort been replicated but never matched? Never. I mean, the only thing that really, and the D-Generation X kind of, that was kind of a phenomenon in itself. But ever since the two of those, we just haven't seen anything quite like that. And, I mean, we've seen, if you remember back in 2000, I want to say it was 12 and 13, TNA came as close as they've probably ever come in an effort to try to do it with the aces and eights, if you remember.
Right. I remember that.
And that was an attempt. That was just a blatant attempt to make something like that work. And the guys that were a part, I think they did a heck of a job trying to sell something that had been done many times before, but they certainly did it well. But at the end of the day, also TNA tried to do that same thing back in 2010, if you remember. It was 10-10-10. TNA's Bind for Glory, where they were talking about, I forget the specific terminology used, but they were, Abyss was talking about they're coming, blah blah blah, and the next thing we know, they are Hulk Hogan and Bischoff, and yet again another attempt, but really, of course TNA was, for lack of a better term, second tier to WWE, where WCW was a heavy competitor. But even when the NWO came out, WCW was in second place by far. It wasn't close, and they came out and they made it work, and certainly probably one of the best factions, probably the best faction of all time. So I kind of wonder if this will have a long-term effect. I'd love to see Cena go heel, no doubt about it, because it would actually make me enjoy watching him a little bit more, because I do feel like the character has become a bit stagnant. But I kind of wonder where it goes from there. If does he beat the Undertaker? Does the Undertaker? One source is saying that it could potentially have a loser leaves town type stipulation where ultimately the loser is retires, and certainly the predictable answer there would be the Undertaker. But I don't see why Vince would want to make it look that predictable when you have two icons of different eras going against one another. I don't know. But let's say the two meet. Of course, we'll talk about this as time progresses, because I'm sure the more the facts come out, the more it looks like my Goldberg Undertaker prediction is not looking so hot. I think I got too crazy last week. But I'll say this, with Undertaker and Cena being a very high probability for WrestleMania 33, early favorite. Undertaker, as a man who does not lose at WrestleMania, certainly got his streak snapped not long ago. But Undertaker as kind of the Mr. WrestleMania, for lack of a better term, or Cena as a 39-year-old with some years left to go.
I would, and I hate to say it like this, but I'd have to call it even. I don't see either one of them having an advantage over the other right now. I mean, just with just what you said, you don't want the Undertaker to lose at WrestleMania, especially what could be possibly his last. And I mean, it could be that's the way he goes out, because I think it's been talked about before that Undertaker he's made the comment before that if anybody was to snap it, he would want Cena to snap it. Snap the streak before it ended. But you really hate to see the Undertaker lose like that, but you got your draw with Cena, and I think the way you would make it where it wouldn't be so predictable was to have Cena as a heel. With if the crowd, and of course the crowd would all be for Undertaker. I don't know. I'd have to call it even right now. I don't think either one of them would have an advantage right now.
Right. Well, and my concern really is that if Cena wins and that's the last time we see the Undertaker, as a big Undertaker fan, I would be very disappointed if
that's what and I would want to see him go out losing his last WrestleMania. You want to see I mean, you think about the Ric Flair situation when he went out and to lose his career match to Shawn Michaels. That was not, and it was time for Flair to go. Don't get me wrong, but that's not a way you want to see somebody go out like that. But let him go out on top, and especially Undertaker has defined WrestleMania. You just know you're going to see Undertaker at WrestleMania for the last however many years now. So I wouldn't want to see him lose his last WrestleMania.
Well, I wouldn't either. But honestly, WWE and has been very has definitely traditionally their stars when they retire go out with a loss, and usually it's dignified, as Flair's was again at WrestleMania 24, a great match that was. It was dignified. Shawn Michaels going out the way he did, dignified loss. He certainly competed well. But there's something about the Undertaker that you just the whole character, the whole persona is just not that of man, and you just don't want to see him finish that way. I mean, I almost would say it's specific to him. If we see Goldberg lose at Survivor Series and that's his last match, which I don't think is going to happen, but if that happens, then so be it. And I'm sure he'll probably put up a valiant effort, and he'll go out with grace and dignity. But there's just something about the Undertaker you don't want to see that happen.
No. And I mean, just like you said, with Michaels was Mr. WrestleMania. They called it that, but he lost to somebody that hadn't ever lost at a WrestleMania at the time. So that was kind of dignified in his loss. So, I don't think Undertaker should lose at a WrestleMania, especially and I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but it's his last WrestleMania. No, don't let him lose that way. Let him go out on top.
Well, let me ask you this now. There's a lot of speculation coming out about WrestleMania, folks. We want to make sure we address it, all of it tonight. I will ask you this, Stevie. The Undertaker it's no doubt is going to be a shoe-in for the Hall of Fame at some point.
No doubt.
Do you think they wait until he wrestles his last match, or do you think that they'll induct him and then he'll wrestle his last match at WrestleMania? Do you think we see an induction this year?
I do. I've said it. We've talked about it on shows past. I think this will probably be his last WrestleMania, and I think he'll, kind of like Flair did. Flair lost that WrestleMania, but he was inducted that weekend in the Hall of Fame. So I think that's what will happen, and I think it should happen.
Right.
I don't think you should have to make him wait for his Hall of Fame induction, and do it right there. That weekend would be great.
Well, we will see what happens. WrestleMania coming up in April of this upcoming year, and of course, we're about to enter WrestleMania season. And WrestleMania season used to begin at the Royal Rumble, but here lately we've kind of seen where WrestleMania season seems to get kicked off around Survivor Series time, and I think this year will be no exception. Goldberg and Lesnar, whoever wins that match, I do believe that match is going to have implications somehow or another on who those men face at WrestleMania. I personally believe they'll both be fighting at WrestleMania. I do not believe they'll fight one another. So a lot of speculation. As a matter of fact, I read a report on the Bleacher Reports. Pretty much was an opinion article calling for Goldberg to win, saying that the best thing for business is going to be a Goldberg win, simply because the story of Brock Lesnar tearing through the entire roster is becoming old. Do you agree?
I do. I thought that was not a good thing from the start. Somebody that's a part-time player and is just coming and destroying your roster, the full-time guys. And you have to wonder what the full-time guys think about this. And, I know Lesnar's done his stuff in the past, and he's a former world champion in the past, but he left. For NFL, his NFL future, to give that a try, and he also left for UFC to give that a try. But, no matter how bad you want a guy there. I don't agree with, from the start he came out destroying one of your world champions, one of one of your best guys, your best draws, and he was destroying him from the start, and he hadn't been there, and is a part-time guy, and he's coming out just destroying folks. I don't think that's good for your roster. I don't think it's good for the guys backstage. And you have to wonder what some of these guys backstage think of that. I wouldn't like it if I'm there busting my butt every night, and this guy comes in and gets top draw and is able to do whatever he wants to from the start, and he's there once a month or twice a month counting a pay-per-view and maybe one Raw. So, I just don't like it.
And, I'm with you. I can totally see why the people who wrestle day in and day out, they go to all the house shows. I can totally see why they would be upset about that. But my question is, are we going to see – let's take a look at a guy right now, Kevin Owens, okay? He's probably one who would be upset at the fact that he didn't get a chance to wrestle main event WrestleMania, and then you end up seeing somebody like Undertaker and Cena. And, of course, you can bank your money on if that is Undertaker's last match, that will be the last match of that night.
Oh, yeah.
So if that's the case, and you got an up-and-coming star like Kevin Owens who, is a Universal Champion, ends up going to WrestleMania and essentially wrestling a match somewhere around the 9 p.m. slot when he could be main eventing. I wonder, I'm with you there that I understand that those guys might be upset. They're full time, they're doing everything. But then my question, Stevie, is when WWE contacts them at 10 years from now, when they've kind of run their course and they're starting to be the part timers, and people are going nuts to see them back on programming. I wonder if they're going to be as quick as Lesnar is, I'm sure, for a good paycheck, to come back, headline a few Raws, and main event a show. I wonder if they'll say, no, I don't want to interfere with the young guys, or if they're going to say, well, I guess this is how it works, so I'm going to do that. I mean, that's my thing. I mean, I understand the argument that, those guys that are performing full time, but I mean, there's no doubt that Brock Lesnar worked that same schedule once.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree with you there, but my thing is, I can see if a Lesnar comes back and comes out and starts destroying some of the lower card guys, but you get him up against, and he's getting top billing over, a Cena or somebody like that, destroying him, that makes no sense. And comparing Undertaker and Cena, if an Undertaker and Cena match comes on, like you said, no doubt that's the main event, especially if it's Undertaker's last match. That is main event anywhere. I don't care who else is wrestling. And Owens, if Owens and whoever he's wrestling, whether it's Roman Reigns or what, you're not going to get a top draw over Cena and Undertaker. I'm sorry. And one day it'll come your time where, you may, like you said, they may ask him back, and he may get a top draw. I don't know if Kevin Owens will ever be to the level of an Undertaker, but
right.
You just have to realize that Undertaker and Cena have put in all this work, and I can't compare the work that Undertaker and Cena put in compared to Brock Lesnar. I mean, they've really paid their dues. I mean, Lesnar's been that. Undertaker and Cena have stuck with that company, and up until years ago, when Undertaker, for reasons unbeknownst to us, I guess health reasons, and just didn't make an appearance until WrestleMania. But before that, he was going, and he was the most respected guy in the locker room by far. And Cena, whether you like him or not, from what I hear, Cena has a lot of respect in the locker room, and he works his tail off. And I just don't see that with Lesnar. I like, he might be a big draw for some folks, but he doesn't impress me as far as wrestling goes. He's a good UFC fighter, but as far as a wrestler, no. He's just a brawler. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I definitely agree that the Undertaker and people like Undertaker and Cena have certainly put more work into the wrestling business than Brock Lesnar is. I mean, let's face it, Lesnar is he was certainly a big deal in wrestling, but he's more of a larger-than-life star than he is known for being a pro wrestler. I mean, The Undertaker is known exclusively for his work in the WWE, period. And John Cena almost the same. But matter of fact, any of his extracurricular things he's done, Make-A-Wish Foundation, what have you, all of that has been tied to the WWE. So practically nothing that the Undertaker and John Cena have done has been not tied to the WWE. Well, you got a guy like Brock Lesnar who's fought in the UFC. I mean, got a number of scandals going on there. I still can't get why, the WWE is so quick to suspend some of their superstars, and then it's very quick after reports come out that he's been doping, whether true or not, are very quick to put him back on television. Now, that's another thing that I have a concern about, and I want to ask you about. It was literally weeks after that report came out after his most recent fight, July 9th in UFC, when he returned to UFC 200. If you remember correctly, reports came out soon thereafter that that his medicals had produced reports of doping. He denied those reports. There has been evidence that has made it look fairly clear that it could have been something going on. Now, whether or not he knew about it, that is potential for discussion. But my question is for you, Stevie, as somebody who I know you follow wrestling very closely, and I know that you follow the folks who've been suspended, who've been released from contracts due to multiple violations. Is the WWE right to put Brock Lesnar on the air soon thereafter those reports, but they're quick to not include people on their roster who've been accused of the same thing?
I don't think so, and I don't understand the big obsession with Brock Lesnar. It's evidently, Vince has always liked the bigger guys. You look at Hulk Hogan in his time, that was one of the biggest guys at that time, and he's basically had an obsession with the bigger guys. But as far as doing, coming that quick off and not being really what you say punished like another guy, you look like right now Paige serving her second suspension for wellness violation.
Yep.
I don't know what the deal is with that, but they have definitely kept her. They kept her off the air for well on 3 months now, which I know she was about ready to make her appearance after the first one, and then shortly after they kept her off, and next thing you know, you hear she's being suspended a second time. So I don't think they're doing it on the same level with each one of the stars. I think Lesnar should have been kept off for a while. If you look at Lesnar, he's really not on Raw that much. He makes an appearance at a pay-per-view once in a while when it's a big match like this, and more power to you if you can get the draw like that. But that's just something I've never been a fan of, and it goes back to the day with Hogan. You look at when it was NWA and WWF.
Right. You
had the 30-day rule for a champion to defend his belt. Flair would defend his belt 2 or 3 times, and I mean in a span of 5 days, where Hogan would wait 20 days to defend his belt. So, I never liked that. I liked somebody that would make appearances and work hard for what they're doing. And Flair was always like that, and I think Lesnar's more like a Hogan.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Stevie, we're going
to kind of like a diva.
Right. We're going to divert a bit now. We are joined here live on Brawl For All by one half of the Fantastics folks, Mr. Bobby Fulton. Bobby, how you doing?
I'm doing great tonight. How about you all?
Doing
good.
Glad to have you on the show. Stevie, I know you're excited about this interview that you're getting ready to do with Bobby Fulton. Of course, we've got a legend here on Brawl For All, folks. One half of the Fantastics, certainly one of the most legendary tag teams in the history of professional wrestling, and, of course, Bobby Fulton joining us live here tonight. Bobby, we're excited to have you on the show. Stevie, I know you've got a lot of questions for him. Take it away.
Well, of course, like I've told him before, when I've been talking to us, it's a great honor. A lot of people from this time don't realize, but the Fantastics were one of the great tag teams of the 80s and in the early 90s. You know, it was a great to watch them I got to see them in the Crockett days because I didn't have cable here, but they went back a whole lot further in the Mid-South and UWF and World Class.
Yes.
But just tell us, Bobby, about how you got your start.
Well, I'll tell you what. I started my first professional match. I was the age of 16, and it was in Clarksburg, West Virginia, in 1977. But I'll remember as a little boy, all I ever thought of being was a professional wrestler. I got a chance to see the wrestling here in Ohio, and for some reason, when I walked by that TV the first time, I was hooked. I told people that I don't know if it was like an orchestra or not, the sound of the pounding of the mat, the grunting and groaning of the professional wrestlers, the forearm hits and this and that, and the calling of the match. To me, it was like the New York Symphony, and I was hooked from the very first, and the roar of the crowd. I just recently had ran into my baseball coach when I was a little, and he said, I'll never forget, I asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, and you told me a professional wrestler. And he said you went on to travel all over the world, be on international and national television broadcasts, featured on national and international magazines and such, and programs, and wrestle some of the greatest stars, as you said, in the 80s and the 90s, to have an influence even today. They tell me that at NXT they often show the matches of the Midnight Express and the Fantastics, trying to rekindle that same style of professional tag team wrestling. Even today in 2016, and I've had so many people tell me, and I say it to you with great honor, and even though I'm long-winded and it's all right, I can be that way at 56, that our matches still hold up today with what's being seen on television, whether it's in Maine, Spain, Spokane, or no matter where. All over the world, those matches of the Midnight Express and the Fantastics would hold tight even today to the crowd today. And, you know, I'm very blessed by God Almighty to have had an opportunity to live my life as a professional wrestler. Not only that, but to meet a lot of nice, great people. You know, you can't forget that I'm as well as I am a professional wrestler, I'm a great fan of wrestling, the sport of wrestling, the king of sports, professional wrestling, and I'm so excited that when I get a chance to talk to tell people that I got a chance to wrestle in some of the major arenas all over the country against some of the biggest stars, and you know, I think about Tommy Rogers, my partner, the late Tommy Rogers, who was great, was one of the greatest athletes in professional wrestling. You know, we were only 5'9", and I say only in a world of giants, but together, me and him collectively was able to influence guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Ultimate Warrior, Sting, and some of these other guys that we wrestled in their careers, and I'm very, very thankful. And Shawn Michaels, I seen him at an event not long ago, and he stopped and he just said, Bobby, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all you've done for me. And for people to say that to me, man, I am paid in spades by what I did, because you know what? People had to help me, and I pass it forward. Even today in professional wrestling, trying to encourage young guys and stuff like that, even with our company that we're now promoting wrestling again in Ohio and having great events, and one upcoming this Saturday, November the 12th, in which Demolition Axe and I will team up and have a whole array of wrestling stars. Guys, I know you asked me a question I got started. Sometimes it's hard to get me to stop because I'm very passionate about professional wrestling, and I stop here to let you talk.
That's no problem at all. You can talk all you want to. It's great to listen to you talk. You talked about trying to, you know, like the NXT guys,
yes,
maybe the WWE guys trying to get. That's something me and Lance have talked about on here, and I've been. I'm a big fan of tag team wrestling. Have been since I started watching in the mid '80s. I don't think WWE and I think they do a little bit better job now. But I mean, you tell me your opinion. I don't think they push the tag teams enough like they used to back in the '80s when you had great tag teams. in the
Sure.
NWA, and the WWF back then had them.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it would really take it to another level if they pushed the tag team wrestling like they did back then, because they were some of the, like your matches with the Midnight Express. They were some of the most exciting matches and would really get the crowd going into it. There's nothing like a good tag team match.
Good, exciting tag team match. You're right.
Exactly.
When you got, it's not just two guys, but it's 4 or 6 guys, and like you said, they majored on great tag teams, whether it was the British Bulldogs in the WWF, let's see, there's so many of them. I think about Demolition. I talked about him earlier. Yeah. They majored on tag team wrestling, as well as the I was trying to think of the Killer Bees. I mean,
Killer Bees.
Tito Santana, when he was a tag team partner with people.
Strike Force.
People love tag team wrestling. And when you take the element of tag team wrestling out of a wrestling event, it's like leaving out the clowns or the tigers at the circus. It's a very important element that the people come to expect to see, and it can't get any more exciting than when tag team matches get wild and woolly. And it's just something that they need to really press to make it a featured event at a wrestling program.
What I think they need to do, and I know they're doing like a Dusty Rhodes tag team tournament in NXT, but I think they need to take it a step further. You had the privilege of competing in all. I believe didn't you compete in all 3 of the Crockett Cups?
I did. We did 2 of them. We did the one in
86 and 88.
New Orleans, the very first, and then we did the one in 88. And I'll tell you one thing right now. We wrestled some of the greatest tag teams there in New Orleans from around the world at that point.
Right.
I mean, my goodness, some of the greatest talent in the history of professional wrestling assembled there at that very first Crockett in New Orleans, and we got a chance to wrestle a lot of them, and not only that, but even guys that didn't even have names. And I want to throw a couple of them out there. Hollywood, John Tatum and Jack Victory. What a great tag team. Sting and Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. I just put a match on our Facebook someone has shared. We had great matches with guys like this and I know they all remember Sting and they remember Eddie Gilbert, but they remember that Eddie Gilbert and Sting was a team. I mean,
what about Sting and Rick Steiner, too?
That's right. We had great matches. I remember Rick Steiner being there. You're exactly right. But they were great tag teams, and it's just something that's lost. And you say, well, is it who made it lost? Well, it's the figureheads that's done that. And listen here, they try to rewrite wrestling. You can't rewrite wrestling. And Bill Apter wrote a book, Is Wrestling Fixed? I didn't know it was broken. It wasn't broken, but I believe that the powers to be of the WWE don't like professional wrestling. You can tell that because they want to call it sports entertainment. Well, I'm not a sports entertainment guy. I'm a professional wrestling guy. And what I was wanting to say is they want to try to change it to suit them. But it's just like the NFL or the NASCAR. You change it so much that you run off your base fans, and that's the problem professional wrestling has. The fans vote with their feet. And that's why Raw's ratings are at an all-time low. And all these shows, and they shouldn't be because they're the only major thing left in the country. I mean, besides the smaller independent-type wrestling and things like that. So they need to learn to get with the program, so to speak, the WWE does. And get this thing going because, listen to me, when they prosper, all the professional wrestling prospers. And when they hurt, all of professional wrestling hurts. And with that being said, I just wish that they would get it in gear. There's so much talent. They got great athletes and stuff like that. But I did go to a Raw, me and my son Dylan, and I did notice this. That years ago when I wrestled in major stadiums and arenas throughout this world, that the people not only stood when we came to the ring, but they were standing during the matches. They were jumping up and down like popcorn, yelling and screaming. I notice now that the fans only cheer when they come in, They sit down during the match, and then they stand up when the guys leave and go back to the dressing room, more than women wrestlers. Now, I see some incredible hard-fought battles with that Charlotte. I mean, that girl, Ric Flair's daughter, does unbelievable stuff in the ring. What a great athlete she is. But there's just something missing across the board with the entire product that they have, being that there's no emotional attachment with the wrestling fans.
Well, let me ask you this. I can remember back in the 80s, there wasn't so much wrestling on TV. And, I mean, back then I was like, I couldn't get enough of it. But, unfortunately, I only had it twice a night. Do you think there's a little bit of overkill with it now?
Well, I'm going to tell you,
so available?
I'm going to tell you what the problem is. They need to bring back all enhancement talent, because I want to see John Cena win with his move. I want to see these guys win by their moves, just like the Nature Boy Ric Flair and the Fantastics won with their moves on WTBS. And then when we get to the arena, we face the TV should be a showcase for your talent. But when you got John Cena wrestling Randy Orton, let's just say it for example, and then you say, and ladies and gentlemen, next week you're going to see John Cena wrestle Randy Orton, and hey, at the pay-per-view 5 weeks from now, it's going to be a big matchup. What's it going to be? It's going to be John Cena versus Randy Orton. They give it away. Look, guys, they give it away. They give it away. They don't know how to create. I like the way Ken Mantell booked. It was like this. He had 3 to 4 major events a year, and either that was the start of a program or the end of a program. There's no real beginning and end to anything with the WWE. There's no rhyme or reason. And they got great wrestling minds there. Michael Hayes. They got Pat Patterson and all these great guys. But somewhere up there in them Titan Towers, there's a Frankenstein. And he chokes out the life of the wrestling of it. And, hey, I want it to survive and I want it to win because, listen, I go into all these areas, and like I said, we started in Ohio where the crowds are loud and unbelievable. So loud it's ear-piercing. And if we can do that in a small town in Ohio and draw 1,000 people, then why can't the WWE have 20,000 roaring fans at the wrestling match? I mean, it's part of the electricity of the crowd is part of the allure of it, and also it motivates the wrestlers even more so.
But I'm right there with you. Back in the 80s, especially with the Crockett's and the NWA and UWF in the southern regions, there was tremendous build up to a feud. Just like with your feud with the Midnight Express, y'all had tremendous build up. The debut match on NWA Pro Wrestling y'all had was when you came out, you wrestled with them, and then there was a build-up every week. I mean, everybody remembers the straight jacket match. Well, first at the Clash of Champions. That's what we want to talk about. Clash of Champions. You come out in Greensboro Coliseum against the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette and put on one of, if not the best match. Everybody talks about Sting and Ric Flair that night, the 60-minute draw, but your match with the Midnights and Luger and Wyndham against Arn and Tully was right there with them. I mean, as far as excitement and getting the fans on their feet. I just don't think these days they build it up enough, and I've told Lance, I show my age a little bit when I talk about some of this stuff, but, back in the day, you had a big build-up to a feud, weeks and weeks, and then it would, like you said, it would start at one pay-per-view and end at one pay-per-view. But like yours with the Midnights, I think y'all kind of ended at the Bash in '88 when the straight jacket match when you had Cornette in the cage, and you didn't have a bad match with the Midnight Express.
You're right, and it's just like you said. There's so many other matches that we have, but on that particular Clash, I don't know if a lot of people realize this or not, but we went to we went up head-to-head to WrestleMania that year.
Yeah,
and as a matter of fact, I understand Crockett's gotten a lot of trouble because of it, because it really hurt their buy rate. And
it definitely did on free TV. And not just the fact it was free TV, but watching that WrestleMania, because that's what you went head-to-head with WrestleMania 4 with the World Title Tournament. Except for the match at the end with Savage and DiBiase, I would put every match on the Clash card right there with any match on the WrestleMania card. And I mean, your match, Luger and Wyndham with Arn and Tully and Sting and Flair, were better than any match on the WrestleMania card that night. And
Thank you so
nobody
much.
had to pay for that.
Yeah.
But I was always, raised in the South, still in the South. But I always got my start at the NWA wrestling, and somehow or another, one night late, I did in syndication. I got to watch the UWF, and I was a fan of UWF for what I could pick up from it. And then when Crockett bought off UWF, I was glad to see it at the time, but it was kind of sad to see that UWF come to an end.
Sure. The one thing about it is that we're living in a special time right now, and I'm saying we're living in a special time for professional wrestling, because there is an opportunity and a window of opportunity for people to rewrite wrestling history. And what I'm trying to say is, if there would be people just smart enough to do some smart things, they could build something in wrestling regionally where the WWE is failing. And a lot of people think, I just don't think it could happen. I know it can happen, and that hopefully that will happen, because the one thing that guys need to do is they need to learn to wrestle, and they need to learn how can you train somebody. And I'm on a rabbit hunt right now, but it's okay. How can you train somebody when you've only wrestled once a month? And I mean, seriously, train them. When you've only wrestled once a month for the past 15 years. You've been a wrestler for 15 years, right? But you only wrestle once a month. And the guy that you learned from was a guy who had not really wrestled very much himself. Listen, there's more to wrestling than a big move. I can take and go into the ring and have more emotion over little movement, lots of passion over anything done off the top, wherever, it doesn't matter. And it's like I said, it still works, and I don't mean to get on a tangent, but I just try to express that to people, especially these young guys, because listen, guys, I'm 56 years old, and I can go with anybody in the ring 10 to 15 minutes, and I'm just saying I can do that because, number one, I didn't go and do dives. I did the planches and going over. You can see the matches in Japan, but what I'm trying to say is that when the bell rings, guys, start off slow. You don't jump out there and kick a guy and suplex him and then jump off the top rope and do a 350 thing. And I mean, you know what I'm saying? Guys got to learn to put things in perspective. And I just threw that in for free tonight, guys. That's for anybody listening that wants to know.
Well, I'll tell you, I absolutely agree with your assessment of wrestling. And it was so refreshing to hear somebody say that pro wrestling ought to be called pro wrestling, not sports entertainment. Right. What is that? I mean, another fine point you made is that when you have zero competition on the mainstream level, we really ought to be getting a better, more exciting pro wrestling product.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm trying to say for the WWE. Now, I know it's $1 billion company, because believe you me, they're selling me and a bunch of other guys from the 80s and 90s illegally on their WWE network, and I'll get back on that bandwagon, making $9.95 a month, or they're giving it away free. But the thing that it is that it's doing too on the WWE network is exposing their product. Listen, when they got to shake a camera when a guy hits a guy to make it look decent, or shake the camera whenever he gets flipped across the ring, something's wrong. And,
Yep.
and you can't hear the roar of the crowd, but you can hear them slapping each other's legs when they throw a punch or do something or try to kick somebody. He's got to slap his legs so hard that way he makes himself mad enough he can hurt a guy.
Well, I'll say this, and I don't want to forget to mention this. You know, I loved your matches with Midnight Express and your other match, but one of the most underrated matches that and I don't know if a lot of people remember, Clash of Champions season beatings, the U.S. Tag Team Title Tournament Final, the Fantastics versus Ron Simmons and Eddie Gilbert. That
yes.
I mean, what an underrated match. I mean, that to this day is still one of my favorite Clash matches. It was just back and forth and back and forth.
Thank you.
You guys worked on Gilbert's, I believe it was his shoulder that night.
Arm,
that ended up coming into it at the end. He got a little greedy and didn't want to make the tag and ran into turnbuckle, but that's still one of my favorite matches of all time. Thank you so much. Right there.
We was prime time television. We wrestled about 28 minutes. I think it was 29 minutes and 30 seconds of a 30-minute time. It was right there near the 30 minutes. It sure was. I remember it to this day watching it. It was such a great match. Tell me, when y'all were brought into Crockett, was there talk? And I know Rock and Roll Express, they're another tag team I really enjoy watching, but they were kind of on the way out. Were y'all brought in to kind of take their place? Well, I think the Midnight Express and them had done their thing, and they were looking at the Midnight Express. They was looking for a team for the Midnight Express to wrestle. We were in Texas, and that was it. We followed the Rock and Roll quite a few times. The first time in the Mid-South Wrestling when they had left and went back to Jarrett for the 90 days. But while we were similar, there was never a competition between us. I've always thought the world of Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson. Always got along great with them. I knew Robert. I remember the night Jerry Lawler came into Memphis Mid-South Coliseum and took Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, said, "Here, guys," threw them a bunch of bandanas and stuff, and they said, "What are we going to do with this?" I mean, and they became the Rock and Roll Express. So, but the one thing that was going to happen at the end of the deal, that never happened, was we were going to turn heel against the Rock and Roll Express now.
Wow.
With that being said, I am 100 times better heel than I ever was a babyface. And I say that meaning it, but I just never really got the opportunity to show that then. But we were going to, and then I think Robert quit, and that was all didn't happen. I think Paul Jones was going to be our manager, and we were going to switch, and I would have enjoyed it and loved it. But we never went to ever replace anybody. We went to work and went to have great matches. And a lot of people said a lot of things about, even Jim Cornette will tell you, the matches between the Midnight Express and the Fantastics were magical. And perhaps people will never see that quality of tag team match again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think they will. That you just really I love hearing stuff because I try to find out as much about wrestling that I can.
Right.
But that story you just told me right there, I'd never heard that before. But I would love to see that. That would have been great.
Well, me and my brother Jackie, after Tommy had wanted to go back home for a while, and because I was a tag team wrestler, I got my brother Jackie involved, brother George, and we teamed up, and we wrestled as heels against the Rock and Roll quite a few times. And as a matter of fact, one night on the WCW show in Kingsport, the security guards was going nuts trying to grab a hold of us and everything like that. So, I mean, that's the kind of heat that we could get, and stuff. So, and I'm sure Tommy and I could have done the same thing as far as that goes. But like I said, that's how I broke into the wrestling business with Flying Fred Curry and Wild Bull Curry, a guy named Hank and Roger Vest here in Chillicothe and them. And then I later broke my arm in a riot, and then I then I'd gotten pretty good shape, and they could market me to the girls, and that's why I became a baby face, and the rest, they say, is history. You know, I'm just thankful at 56 I can still enjoy it. This is my last year in professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. But then after that, I'm going into sports entertainment. I'm going to be wrestling until I'm 65.
Well, listen, I have to ask you this. I mean, because I think he is one of the great minds in professional wrestling, probably one of the greatest minds. What was it like to work with Jim Cornette?
Jim Cornette, he was a character. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I predicted Jim Cornette's career long before he even got into the wrestling business. Me and him recently went back to that same fish camp there in outside of Louisville a couple weeks ago, and I shared it on my Facebook. And what had happened was we had taken and I'd ride with him and his mother from Louisville to Evansville on Wednesday nights when we wrestled in for Jerry Jarrett and them. And all of a sudden, they had said, well, Jim Cornette, I told Jimmy, I said, Jimmy, you're never going to be a wrestler. But I said, Jimmy, you're going to be a manager, you're going to be a booker. And I even was riding down the road, and Jimmy could tell you, I said, one day, Jimmy, I want to wear a bow tie and a top hat and be Lover Boy Bobby Fulton as a bad guy. And later on, he said that's where Loverboy Dennis came from there. You know what I'm saying? But we had Jimmy was great. He had a great mind, and me and him have been dear friends. Of course, we crossed paths, and I set his pants on fire before, and he beat me with a tennis racket. And as a matter of fact, you talked about that straitjacket incident. If you'll watch that video, they put that chair around my head, and if it wasn't for my long blonde hair, you would have noticed a Fred Flintstone knot came up on it. I mean, when Jimmy Cornette was on me, I was knocked out totally cold, and it was just unbelievable. But he's a great guy and a great mind for professional wrestling. And Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan and Dennis Condrey, what a great tag team, you know.
That I've said, and I've told Lance several times, you know, we talked about the whole TNA situation, and I know he was there before, but I honestly think that if you put Jim Cornette in charge of somewhere like a TNA, he could really straighten it out and maybe get it back onto competing with the WWE. I would hope so. I would definitely watch his product that he come out with.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if they would let him do what he wants to do, you know, it's always somebody's jealous or mad or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I know.
That they get mad about whatever. And he's had his problems within the offices of all these other people and stuff like that, but Jimmy's got a sharp mind, and he's a great guy, and like I said, I think he's still got a lot to contribute to the professional wrestling business in so many ways.
Okay. When I first started watching wrestling, of course, like I said, all I could see at first was NWA wrestling. You and Tommy were in the Mid-South then, but I would get these wrestling magazines and see just about every month. Every month I would see you and Tommy and these two guys that they were just weird-looking dudes, but y'all had blood all over it. But this was with the sheep herders. Yeah. Yes. And, gosh, I mean, every month I would see pictures of y'all just bloodied up, and I was like, these guys are trying to kill each other. But y'all had a great feud with the sheep herders. And
we were trying to kill each other. They were from New Zealand, and they were trying to run roughshod over Americans, saying bad things about the greatest country in the world, and therefore we were out for blood. You know, the Fantastics, the girls might have liked us and this and that, and the guys said, well, they're just a couple of sissy boys. But when the blood started flowing and the fists started flying, then them guys said, oh, my goodness, especially about them barbed wire matches. Those people were really going crazy and into them and things like that. You know, you brought up a good point. When I was a young boy and probably 6, 7, 8 years old, there was no internet. There was not anything like that. I had them wrestling magazines that I would go to, The Ring and Inside Wrestling and Wrestling Review and all this and that, and everything. But, it was great to get to have those old magazines, read about people that we didn't get to see because it was regional back then.
That's
and to
right.
tell people that.
See, Lance is a little bit younger than me, so he's had it where it was WWE or WCW the whole time, where he could see it whenever he wants to. But to understand, the first wrestling magazine I got, and the name escapes me of it, but the picture on the cover was you, Tommy, and the Rock and Roll Express. It had to be a picture from, I think it was around the time of the first Crockett Cup.
Yes, it was.
But,
George Napolitano took that picture.
Exactly. And, yeah, you remember that picture, because I think Morton still had the bandage over where he was supposed to have his nose broke.
Yes,
but,
and we recreated that 2 years ago, that picture, in Louisiana the last time I got a chance to see Tommy Rogers. We created that picture. We tried to the best of our ability, the same type pose and everything, which I think I've shared on my Facebook.
Yeah, that was just one of my first memories of a wrestling magazine. Like you said, I used to buy it every chance I got when I'd go looking for. It was either Pro Wrestling Illustrated or Inside Wrestling or something like whatever I could get my hands on at that time, just so I could see more. Because we didn't get the AWA, we didn't get Mid South.
Sure.
We just got every once in a while I could get WWF, but mostly it was Crockett's. But I did love the Crockett era with Dusty and Magnum, and then when y'all came along. Okay, people talk about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and I didn't know it till I did my research on this. You had the precursors of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You had Big Time Wrestling, which later became Smoky Mountain Wrestling, right?
Yeah, well, here's the deal. I helped Jimmy find his ring for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and they did their first shows at my shows. They taped them for television. The first 2 or 4 Smoky Mountain Wrestling shows are actually my shows. And my Big Time Wrestling I still have, and that's what I talk about in Ohio, that we're out doing a lot of great stuff. As a matter of fact, we're having all kinds of guys come in, Buff Bagwell, the franchise Shane Douglas. We also have, like I said, Demolition Axe coming, and also we have Sting coming. So we're doing a lot of great things with that company. But people say that we were a precursor. I just helped Jimmy as much as I could get it started, wrestle for Smoky Mountain Wrestling in between going to Japan. And we were in that Fire on the Mountain, and one of the first major shows in the barbed wire cage. It was me and my brother Jackie against the Heavenly Bodies, Tom Pritchard and Sweet Stan, along with Jim Cornette and Bullet Bob Armstrong. The commissioner was the referee of that match.
Right.
So I tried to help him any way I could get that thing started.
And I tried to get my hands on every Smoky Mountain Wrestling video I could back then, because that was just, that was the closest thing to the old Crockett that that you would see back then. I mean, but you came up with some great talent there. You had Chris Jericho started that. Got one of his starts there with Lance Storm, the Thrill Seekers. I mean, it was top to bottom. You had Kane. Kane got to start there as a Unabomb.
Yes,
so,
that's right. A lot of great teams.
A lot of great people came through there. It was just a great. Smoky Mountain was a great place. I hated to see that come to an end. But I'm with you on it. But sometimes that happens. But hey, I'm telling you, it's not the story of professional wrestling is not over, and I'm looking forward to a big future in it with things to happen and everything like this. But listen, I've enjoyed talking to you guys earlier. I just got out of church. Okay.
And I'm going to have to go, and let's do this at another time if you don't mind. I've got a bunch of stuff I'm doing and everything, and I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to get on here and talk to you. And God bless you guys. I appreciate it, man. And
thank you
keep
so
up the
much
great work.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless you too, Bobby. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you, guys. God bless.
All right. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bobby Fulton of the Fantastics. Stevie, I know I kind of kept my mouth shut, and I'm going to tell you why, because I know that you have long been a wrestling fan, a lot longer than me. He was somebody that was a big deal in your time, and wanted you to get the opportunity to talk to him. So how was it talking to Bobby Fulton of the Fantastics?
You know, and I mean, I would love something like that. I could sit there and talk for, and I mean, on this show, I could sit here and talk for hours about wrestling. And you know, you can tell he's very passionate about pro wrestling. Like he said, pro wrestling, not sports entertainment, and that's what it was back when he was wrestling. And you talk about anybody that's sitting here listening tonight. If you want to see a good match, look up a Fantastics match on YouTube. You know, it will. All the stuff back then, in my opinion, buries what was going on today. They put on great matches. They did the build-ups. Fantastics and Midnight Express match. Look at any of them, and you'll see what we're talking about. It was great to be able to talk to somebody that you really looked up to when you were a kid, and still do now. I mean, that was just pretty awesome right there.
Good. Well, Bobby Fulton, one half of the Fantastics, I'm sure he'll be back with us on the show as we progress forward. But it was definitely an honor to have him on the show tonight. As we near the end of the show, let's talk a little bit about the Rage Wrestling World Championship
we got a big
Tournament.
one coming up.
Coming up this Saturday night, November the 12th, 7 o'clock p.m., live from Northeast Academy Gymnasium in Lasker, North Carolina. Folks, if you're looking to get tickets, just so you'll know, you can go on RageWarriors.com, get your tickets now. They're on sale online. People who purchase tickets online will have priority seating. So if you do not have your tickets yet, you want to make sure you get them. You can get them online, or you can also get them if you're local to the Northeastern North Carolina area. You can get it at Morris Auto Service, and also, I believe, the Grapevine Cafe, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
Steve.
right.
Yep. So, of course, get your tickets now. I'll tell you that there's a lot to look forward to. A couple of the guys that are seen to be heavy favorites moving into the tournament. Benjamin Banks certainly is a favorite, I would say. But I think the crowd, maybe, it sounds to me there's a movement, as we kind of talked about in recent weeks, for the Pain Train, Preston Quinn, to become the next. Become not only the next, but the first Rage Wrestling World Champion. Do you think? What do you think, Stevie? I mean, are you thinking that we're going to see this dream of many become a reality, or is the Pain Train going to be on the outside looking in?
I think it may become a reality this weekend. You know, Pain Train is one of those heels that you get behind. It, you know, kind of like he's getting a fan movement, kind of like Stone Cold did. Stone Cold Steve Austin was a heel, but the fans really got behind him, and I think Pain Train's starting to build a little fan base. And like you said, it may be some problems if Pain Train doesn't win the tournament.
That's what it sounds like. Well, we'll definitely see what happens at the Rage World Championship Tournament. It's coming up this Saturday, November 12th. You can get your tickets online at RageWarriors.com. You can get them at the door, but, folks, you get priority seating if you get your tickets in advance. So you want to make sure you get them just as soon as possible. I think they're going to have some good food that night. Stevie, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they will. And the doors are opening at 5:30.
I don't think you come to Northeast and ever get bad food. So I'm pretty sure you come with your stomach empty and you won't be let down.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. And I'll tell you, I think Benjamin Banks certainly has a shot. But I'm not sure if you recall, I think you got a chance to see them when they came in at the October 8th event before it was postponed. And that's Mark and Sean Denny, the Geordie Bulldogs, who will be a part of this tournament. Were kind of a late addition to the last tournament. Do the brothers, either one of the brothers, stand a shot, you think, at the title, or are they on the outside looking in?
Well, I think they're more the tag team, but, you always got a chance. I think somebody we're failing to mention here, and I don't want to go away from the Bulldogs, but we're not talking about Asafi a lot. Asafi is definitely a threat. I think I would put him as more of a threat than is single-wise than a Benjamin Banks. Asafi would be one of my picks to probably be in the finals. just depending on what the brackets, how the brackets play out. But I think Asafi's got the chance to go to the finals, and maybe even be the world champion. But that's somebody we haven't talked about a whole lot. But I was impressed with him as a match at the last event, and as big as he is, you can't teach size, and he definitely throws his weight around, and he's definitely got some talent. He comes from a good line of wrestlers with his uncle, the Barbarian. So watch out for Asafi too.
Well, and if Asafi, let's say Asafi wins, I mean, or not just Asafi, but Benjamin Banks. I mean, let's say, can you think of a Rage Wrestling with heel champions across the board? I mean, is that really viable?
I mean, stranger things have happened in professional wrestling, but Mayhem Incorporated would corner the market on championship gold that night if that does happen. I can definitely see it happening, but I'm still sticking with the Pain Train. I think the Pain Train's going to take it.
All right. Well, folks, again, just a reminder, this Saturday night, November the 12th, Northeast Academy Gymnasium. It's located at 210 Church Street in Lasker, North Carolina. Again, 210 Church Street, Lasker, North Carolina. If you don't have plans to go, but you're in the northeastern North Carolina area, don't miss this show. It's going to be a phenomenal show. It's going to be a great time. And, of course, they will announce a return date that night to Northeast Academy. And let me just tell you, folks, Rage Wrestling is going to be putting on some great shows in the very near future, including this Saturday at Northeast Academy, which I like to call, when it's decorated as such, Rage Arena. And I'm going to tell you something. You do not want to miss what Rage Wrestling has in store over these next I'd say 3 shows. It's going to, including this one. If you don't have your tickets yet, you can get them online, RageWarriors.com. It's going to be a really great night this Saturday night. Don't miss it. And, of course, Stevie Fly will be on hand doing an expert analysis and such. But nonetheless, looking forward to that show this Saturday. Now, I want to have a thumbs up and thumbs down session before we go, Stevie, because we do have some things to chat about there. And a little bit of it is I'm going to ask you for kind of some definitive answers here about the Rage Wrestling Championship tournament. So keep in mind, so get ready for that, if you will. I'm going to ask you for some definitive answers about that here in just a second. But I'll start with this. A question that I'll ask you that it appears to be kind of trending online is Goldberg, or a thumbs up or thumbs down rather, Goldberg is inducted into the Hall of Fame of the WWE?
Thumbs up. I would say so. You don't build up this guy like they have, and of course, no doubt he deserves it for his time in WCW and the streak, multiple-time world champion. So, and he won the championship in WWE. So, I could see Goldberg definitely being a Hall of Fame guy. Okay.
Here's another one for you. We haven't really talked about this guy much, but as we get ready for WrestleMania season, I want to hear what you guys think about this. Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestles another match, and it's next year.
Don't see it happening. His neck and his back are in such bad shape. What I've heard him talk about in the past, that it won't let him do another match. I think he would love to be able to do it, but I think the risk far outweighs the gain for him right now, especially at this point in his life. I don't see it. I would love to see it, but I just don't see it happening.
A Bleacher Report article is reporting that Hulk Hogan's daughter, Brooke, says that people have called him from the WWE about wrestling. You heard that correctly. Wrestling at WrestleMania. Thumbs up or thumbs down, Hulk Hogan wrestles his last match at WrestleMania.
As far as wrestling goes, I don't know what kind of shape he's in. Judging from the last time you actually saw him get in the ring, unless he's in a whole lot better shape with his back and stuff, I don't see him being able to carry on a match unless it was a tag team match and he got a few minutes at the end, or maybe he got whatever had to do with the ending at the end. I could see it happen, but I will say this: it could be a tag match. Let's go thumbs up right now. I have heard they have been contacting him about making an appearance and possibly wrestling, so I'll say thumbs up right now.
I'm going to get in on this one. I say thumbs up also. I believe Hulk Hogan has long wanted one last match. And,
right.
The thought of him not getting that, apparently relationship has improved in recent months since the settlement of his lawsuit that gave a lot of negative exposure to the Hulk Hogan brand. And so now he's back in the picture, and WWE is quick to jump on that. And, of course, the WWE Network, which Bobby Fulton so graciously described earlier, which I can certainly agree. I would be a bit concerned if I was in dispute with WWE. I would have some concern about them using my material as well.
Exactly.
I can relate to him there. But they have started pushing Hogan back on the WWE Network. It seems a bit stronger, and I think that it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. We're both in agreement. There's a possibility we could see Hulk Hogan wrestling at WrestleMania 33. And now that we're talking about The Undertaker tonight and seeing this feud beginning to build, that we expect to start seeing on November 15th, a 900th edition of SmackDown, I ask you, thumbs up or thumbs down, The Undertaker and John Cena for sure at WrestleMania is The Undertaker's last match. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I'm going to have to say thumbs up. Even though I don't like to, I say thumbs up because I would love to see Undertaker Sting just one time. But I will say thumbs up. I've said it all along that I thought WrestleMania, this next WrestleMania will be his last match, and I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to go thumbs up.
Okay. Now, getting on to Rage Wrestling now. Thumbs up or thumbs down? The Pain Train, Preston Quinn, wins it all.
Thumbs up. I'm going thumbs up. I know my man Roger Perry would love to hear that, but thumbs up. Pain Train takes the tournament. Well,
we'll see. We will certainly see. I'll tell you, I'd love to see the Pain Train win. I would have. I'm a big Pain Train fan. I really am.
Yeah,
he was our first guest, if you remember correctly, on the show.
That's right. It's hard not to. You think a lot of all these guys, but Preston just being our first guest and so, and his whole story about having to take time off and getting back into it, you just have to pull for the guy. Even though he's a heel, I still pull for the guy. It's just something about Preston you really like, and as far as his wrestling goes, it's top notch too. So it's just not because of who, his story and all that. His wrestling backs up everything that we're saying. We would love to see him win just because we know what kind of wrestler he is too. So I think Pain Train takes it all. And Charles Jones, I know he's loving hearing me say that right now. But anyway,
we'll see what happens. I'll ask you this: thumbs up or thumbs down? You seem to be talking up Asafi as a threat. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Asafi is and loses to the Pain Train.
He broke up a little bit on me, Lance. What did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said thumbs up or thumbs down. Asafi is the man who loses in the finals.
I'll say thumbs up. I think that's, and I'm sure if I look at the brackets, they'll probably have them being matched up before the finals now. But I'll say thumbs up. I think they're, the two big ones heading into this tournament, the two biggest threats in this tournament right now, and I could totally see them in the finals.
All right, folks. And my last question for you, thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay, now go with your gut here. Let me make clear, this is not Stevie saying who he wants to win, wants to lose. It's just thumbs up or thumbs down. Donald Trump wins the presidency.
I want it. I want that to happen, but do I see it happening? No, I don't see it happening the way things are going right now. So I'm gonna say thumbs down right now. But that's not saying I don't want Trump to win, because I definitely do. But I just don't. I don't see it happening right now. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'll be wrong on this one. So this would be one that I really want to be wrong on.
Well, we will
I'm
see.
Sorry,
we will
I'm not
see.
sorry to tell the Hillary supporters that I'm not for Hillary. So anyway.
I know we have a lot listening to our show tonight. Yeah, no worries. Look, fantastic show, fantastic interview with one half of the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton. I think you nailed it. I think you did too. And we welcome him back on the show anytime he wants to come back. And folks, we had such an action-packed show tonight. I wanted to play the clip from our interview with Caprice Coleman back in October, but because we had a great interview with Bobby Fulton tonight, we're going to save that for next week. I don't believe, Stevie, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe we have a guest scheduled next week right now, do we? Not next week.
Not as far as I know, but be on the lookout, because we have a big one hopefully scheduled for the week after next. I mean, that's something that I've been working on for a while, and hopefully this will work out where we can have them. I think if we do it on the 21st, I think that's what we talked about, right, Lance?
That's right. Yeah, Monday the 21st.
Yeah, the 21st. Be on the list. Keep watching our Facebook page and watch our Twitter too, because we'll have an announcement on that in the next week or so.
So Monday, November the 21st, we've got a big guest on.
Are we going to have the champion on next week, though? Whoever wins the tournament?
You're absolutely right. The champion of the Rage World Championship Tournament is going to be. That's why we didn't have a guest scheduled yet, because we don't know who it is. But the winner of the Rage Wrestling World Championship Tournament will be with us live next week on next week's episode. Right. And, of course, we'll also play you. It was a fairly brief interview, but we got about 7-8 minutes worth of footage from the Caprice Coleman interview, and we play that for you next week too. So a lot of Rage Wrestling coming to you next week. All the results, all the analysis, live next week's edition of Brawl for All. And of course, lastly, we will. How about we will announce that special guest next week? How's that sound to you?
Right,
we'll have
we'll do that. That sounds good.
If it wasn't pro wrestling, we would tell you now, but we got to keep you on edge.
Next week. We'll get ready for our second interview with Preston next week.
Maybe he will return to the show next week. I'd love to have him. I would love to have him.
Yeah, I would be
very happy to have him on the air next week. Well, Stevie, always a pleasure. Great job tonight.
Same here, buddy.
All right, folks, that's all for Brawl for All tonight. We will see you next weekend, full coverage of the Rage Wrestling World Championship Tournament right here on blogtalkradio.com. I'm Lance Jenkins alongside with Stevie Fly. And we will see you. Perhaps we should do analysis of the election on Tuesday night, or perhaps we should understand that. I'll get the last word in here. That no matter who's elected president this Tuesday night, it's our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ that really is the Savior. And folks, that's what we need to be worrying about. I'd love to see. Last word. I would love to see how many people who are so willing to put a Trump sign in their front yard, or so willing to put a Clinton sign in their front yard, will put a sign that says Jesus on it. The world would certainly be a better place. Lance Jenkins alongside with Stevie Fly. We will see you next week. We'll know who our new president is, and we'll keep rolling like we always have right here on Brawl for All on blogtalkradio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen,
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your move.